approach, where I've definitely been a person of color who said I only want to date white people. And I think that comes from, one, a place of where I grew up. So I grew up in a very small town in which I really haven't accepted my background, or I tried to actively not engage with the color of my skin. I think until I came to Queens, in which I started engaging in more conversations with that. For context, I'm from a town of 4,000 people. I was one of 5 visible minorities at my high school. Very different vibes. And I think it was very hard to engage with the fact that I am a person of color, because I didn't want to be an outlier. So I would be I would say that just because I wasn't really comfortable with the idea of maybe I'm drawing more attention to who I am, and in that regard. And I think that was where I was in that point of knowledge and acceptance of myself. But I think since coming to Queens, I've become more comfortable talking about the color of my skin and owning that as a piece of my identity. In which I, from a different point of view, that was where I was at that time as well.
Like what Priti was talking about, I think it does come from slavery a little bit, because the whole idea of light is better, being able to pass is the best thing. So that's why I've noticed a lot of people don't wanna date inside their race, because no one wants to be dark, and I don't want my children to have to be dark and grow up being dark and this and this and that. So that's why I found that a lot of people like to swirl.
In my experience, so I've dated outside my race many times, and for me, I don't think it's always institutionalized racism or coming from a place of down with the swirl. So I think sometimes it is just dating, whoever you connect with, regardless of race, if there's a connection. I don't think someone being a different race is neither, whether it be white or Asian or whatever, that should be a barrier. If you really like a person, you'll make it work, That's my opinion and my experience with dating. Yeah.
In terms of the whole preference thing, and you were speaking about where your small, the town you came from, and that's all you saw. I know for me, my experience, I grew up predominantly in white communities. So for the longest time, I was shoot, do I only like white people? And it was kind of am I discriminating against other races because of that? And then there was more exposure as I went on to school, and I changed communities where I was oh no, I also like other cultures. And again, it's not always in terms of the preference. I feel where you grow up shapes a lot of the people you may connect with. And same with just platonic relationships. A lot of my friends, before I even came to Queens, I don't think I had black friends. So but then looking at my friend group now, where it's I engage a lot more with people that come from the same racial group and cultural background as I do. But I don't think that it should, the value of those relationships are to a certain extent different. They're just valuable in different aspects.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna value one relationship with my black friends more than my relationship with people that are not black or that may be of another group because of that. But just knowing that I have a different type of relationship, and that relationship makes it unique for different reasons, and not valuing one relationship over another just because of the race of the people you're interacting with.
Yeah, I agree.
I would say I kind of went in the opposite direction too, because I'm Indian, and then I feel sometimes Indian guys will want to date me because I'm Indian, and then it's kind of me being trying to prevent that, being I don't want to date someone who's Indian because I don't want to be put into that box where I can only date a certain group.
Yeah.
Just quick point for me, I think it's totally valid to if someone is kind of dating you, in terms of favoring the colorism or anything like that, and supporting the institutionalized racism that is kind of in dating preferences sometimes, I think that's
Yeah.
Yeah, back to my previous point, and someone's brought up the fetishizing thing. I feel in my own experience and the feedback I've gotten, a lot of, I was talking about the reasoning in terms of self-defense in a certain way, that so in my experience, it's like mostly women of color, that everyone, they mostly have a fear in the back of their mind in terms of why is this person dating me, like what are the motives in a certain sense, and no one ever wants to find out that they're in a relationship with someone who's like secretly racist. You know, that's like a huge fear, it's like a giant thing, which as a white person you don't really need to be scared of, like because it's not really gonna affect me in any way, like if we're being honest. And then kind of for the whole swirl thing, like I personally also get annoyed by that type of stuff, like where every interracial relationship has to be a social statement, or like all the interracial YouTubers and Instagram pages and all that, where, you know, where I feel like all that, like pushing it down people's face, like, oh yeah, look how progressive we are, makes people want to be like, nah, I don't want to do that, I'm just gonna, have my own relationships and stick within my race. Which, I mean, I personally not an issue if you want to do that or not. But that's where like the whole fetish side kind of snowballs, like especially when you start with like light babies or mixed babies and shit like that. Like that leaves a bad taste in people's mouths because that goes back to every reason outside of an actual reason of being in a relationship with someone. And I think that leads to like, my guess would be a lot of like unhealthy interracial relationships that I've personally I've known of, like within friends and whatnot, which if you have one bad experience or two bad experiences, you're probably not going to go back. And I'm sure probably every woman of color here at a place like Queens has probably had one bad experience with a white guy. And like I went to school in the South.
Bring back.
I went to school in the South, and I lived in Atlanta and whatnot. So I've been to places that are way wider than this, and a meeting like this would just never occur. Like the only time that black people, white people, or people of color would ever come together is when we had these things called town hall meetings that we discuss with campus police about an issue that we want. And that's the only thing that would ever go on. So all in all, I think. Again, with my initial point, the racism bit, I think it's more one-sided. The other is more kind of self-preservation and fear.
Okay, so we're gonna have you talk and then right behind.
And Indra afterwards, and then we can go.
Okay, so to be honest, I kind of feel a little bit conflicted with this whole issue because on one side I do think that to answer the question, it is kind of rooted in stereotypes and racism, but it's also heavily rooted in personal experience and just the life you've lived or whatever. But I don't think it's fair to if someone says I don't date black people or whatever, I don't think it's fair to call them racist or to say that's their motives, because at the end of the day dating is something that's so personal and that's completely your choice. So I feel if they choose not to date someone, you can't tell them that that's wrong because that's just something that they've chosen. That's up to them. If I choose not to date, I don't know, short guys or whatever, it's not very nice, but
We just grab everyone's attention. Thank you.
I'm not saying anyone is wrong for their preferences. What I'm saying is more even if you have a preference, I'm not saying you can't have that preference anymore, just lose it. But think about where it comes from. And what I also want to say just really quickly is mixed race babies aren't going to cure racism.
And then Interracial.
All I was gonna say too is for me, oh my god, thank you. For me, it gets under my nerves when people are so invested in other people's interracial relationships, or just relationships period, because that's how I see it. It's why are you in their business? Mind your business, mind your dating life, live your life. Now the only time I think it's appropriate to step in is, I can't remember who brought it up, but if someone were oh, I don't date black girls because they're this, that, this, and that, or I don't like white girls because this, that's a problem. Because then what you were talking about, it's from stereotypes and stuff like that. If you just like this person, you just like that person. Let them live their lives. Focus on your tick. It's not that easy.
Was pretty much saying I'm not, like, we're not, like you said, like, we're not saying that it's wrong, but to say that you can do something without accountability, without people having opinions about it that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
We'll have Sam and then Teresa.
Okay, I have 2 points to make. First, I want to talk about.
Sam, speak loud.
So I wanted to talk about the interracial relationship thing, and my only issue with that is when people are trying to portray it as like the thing, the movement that will save our society from racism. It's like you'll see an interracial couple and people will be like, yo, yeah, like you guys are good, like you guys are doing that. I'm like, yo, it's a whole relationship, there's nothing that different, you're just dating someone that is from a different culture. You're still going to go through the same milestones as like if you're dating someone that is from your own race. So saying that, oh, let's out there make like mixed babies and things, I'm like, this thing is not going to cure anything. And I don't like the fact that every single time that we see like an interracial relation, we're going to be like, oh, like kind of like portray them as, like you're just giving them this burden that they have kind of to save us from racism, and I don't see why we're doing that. So that's my first point. My second point is going to you about the fact that preference is preference, I agree with that, but my only issue is when you date, for example, when you don't date your race, and you feel the need to like, devaluate, like, oh, I only date white girls because black girls are like that, or like I only date, like, if you're white, you're going to date someone outside of your race, but you feel the need to downgrade your own race. Like, why is you doing that? It's your preference, keep it as it is, but don't like screw this up for all people or like everyone else.
Yeah.
So,
Alright, so Teresa's gonna be our last one for this question.
I just want to touch on, I had a previous comment about what Anika said about mixed babies saving the world, but I'm going to touch on what you said about kind of like downgrading and devaluing like other people. Like, I'm evidently black, and I've always, like, I've grown up in my friend groups with like a lot of my black like male friends saying like, I don't date black girls because they're loud, because they're too feisty, they're too bold, like, I've also heard I date black girls, but I just don't date like dark-skinned girls, because like light-skinned girls wear that. And I think like within the black community, there's a lot of like colorism issues, and definitely that's rooted in like colonialism and slavery. And I think that's one of the things where we all, like, a lot of times people like think interracial dating is like one race and another, but I think even within like racial groups, and it's not just like within the black community, it's like we have like some of those issues where it's like even amongst ourselves we're like discriminating. And like making these choices and like devaluing. So like my thing, like I have that big issue too, where it's like, if you have a preference, like that's fine. I have a preference myself, but it's not because I'm gonna dislike another, like a member of another group. The other thing with the mixed babies, like saving racism, that's like something that like the fetishization of like interracial couples and the, oh, I want mixed babies because they have nice hair, that coming from both like sometimes like black women and like women who are not black, like wanting to have mixed children because it like looks nice. I have a little sister, she's 6 and she's mixed. My mom is Trinidadian, Afro-Trinidadian, my stepdad is Italian. And it's like, it's not like this like it's not gonna save the world, because even within our family we have those challenges where you have a mixed child with a white father who may not understand some of those issues. Like there's problems going on in school, and it's not that my child is, a child who doesn't behave, but it's actually like a microaggression against this child. It's these things that like the social things that you have to, like those boundaries you have to cross, and that sharing of like understanding. It's like, no, it's not going to cure racism because I have a mixed child. It's like there are actually sometimes like other issues that you may not think of on the surface that arise. But like the last thing that I would like leave it on is like, for me, I'm all for dating who you love and like having a healthy relationship over a relationship that is just rooted in like race.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next question because I feel like we can stay on that one forever. But the next thing we have for you is there a double standard when it comes to interracial relationships and gender? So, for example, the whole talk about like black guys dating white girls and then black girls getting mad. Just one example. Okay.